Hi, welcome to the Academic Success Program at Hofstra University. Today we're talking about reading strategies. So you might be watching this because you already love to read and you just want to know how to read faster and more efficiently. Or you might be watching this because you hate to read and you have to do it for class, so you want to figure out the least painful way to do it. So either way, whichever one of those people you are, or anywhere on that spectrum, you're going to find out some really valuable information here. So first, why is it important to read in terms of classes? Well, the lectures might not cover everything, and a lot of times there could be stuff on the test that's only from the textbook that you didn't talk about in class. Professors expect you to read, so they could put stuff on the test that you didn't go over in class. Secondly, just in general, reading makes your life awesome, so just let's go with that, all right? It's going to be a lifelong skill that you use no matter what business you're in. Doesn't matter, you're always going to be needing to be a critically thinking reader. So, okay, reading assignments are real assignments. So basically, you know how we think like, oh, papers, tests, I definitely have to do those, but the reading is like, nah, yeah, you think that? I see you. You think that? Yeah. Well, basically, we want to treat the reading the same as we treat, you know, questions that we have to hand in or a paper or whatever. So the way we can do that is putting it in your planner, the same way that you hopefully have already done, but if you haven't, start doing it now. Transferring all the dates, the due dates, the test dates, the paper deadlines, all of that stuff from your syllabus that the professor gives out into your planner. So we want to do the same thing with the reading assignments. Usually they'll give you all the grading criteria, and this is worth 30%, this is worth 20%, blah, blah, blah. But then there's also a reading schedule. So you want to just put that right in your little planner also, so that we keep on top of it, or at least have the intention to. So one really common challenge that we all have is you'll read a whole bunch of pages, maybe even a whole chapter, and then get through it until the end and say, oh my gosh, I have no idea what I just read. That stinks. So one way to avoid that is by just taking these 3 simple steps. You pause after you read a paragraph, not anything bigger than a paragraph. Reflect on it for a minute, let it marinate in the old brain, and then process it and be like, okay, what does that mean to me? So you're like, your brain is like chewing it up and you're putting it into your own words. So that is helpful because then when you know that you're able to explain it to another person or really make it personal for you or make it make sense to you, that means you really understand it. And even though it might seem like, yeah, but I thought you were going to tell us something that helps us read faster, yeah, so this is actually a way more efficient, faster use of time because when you read for an hour and you have no idea what you just read, that's a waste of an hour right there. But if you're reading and even slowing down to just pause and process it for a little bit and you understand what you read, that's great. Like, that's the goal here. Okay, and then a quick tip also, if that's not for you, like just pausing and kind of letting it ruminate or whatever, and if you're like me and you daydream when you sit and do nothing, feel free to just like ask yourself some concrete questions, like does this relate to anything I've read before or anything I've learned before? Have I seen any real life examples of this? So making it real for yourself is always helpful. Okay, the second strategy comes from a Stephen Covey quote called Begin with the End in Mind. Stephen Covey, by the way, wrote a really amazing book called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I recommend the teenager version because it's more interesting, it has more pictures, even if you're not a teenager, okay. But yes, so begin with the end in mind is basically like, you know, if you were going on a road trip, you're not just going to be like, oh, I'm going on a road trip to, whatever. No, I'm going on a road trip to California. Oh, okay, cool, you know where the end spot is. Same thing with reading. So that makes it a lot easier when you're going into a chapter and you already know where that chapter is headed. So how do you do that? Well, you're already looking at the PowerPoint, I know. So you get a heads up by, say, going to the end of the chapter and reading the summary, which is just like, what, a little chunk there, and you get a whole overview of the chapter. Then when you go in, you know what you're about to be faced with, right? Also, if your professor gives you a homework assignment where there's questions that you have to answer, look at those before you read, because then you know what to look for. And then also, right away in the intro, like sometimes the textbooks have those bullet pointed things that say like, by the end of this chapter, you will know da 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 da. So then all those da 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 da's are the key parts of the chapter. So it's great, all these little heads up. That's strategy number 2. Now the next one is using clues. So we're really lucky in this day and age because a lot of, I guess you would say publishers or just they out there think that, you know, the youth of today has like a 10-second attention span, whether that's true or not, whatever, but we're going to cash in on that because the people who make textbooks now put like, you know, pretty appealing pictures on the side that explain things, or graphs, or little boxes that are definitions in pretty colors, because that holds our attention. But yeah, so use all that stuff, because especially if you have a visual learning style, you're going to get more from that, like quicker than you would just reading like a whole bunch. And I'm not saying don't read it, I'm saying look at that stuff first, because then that'll supplement what you're about to read. What do you think are some good keywords? I'm going to give you a few seconds here. Answer at home. Oh my God, did you say cause and effect? Yes, that is a great little set of keywords to look out for. Also, any lists, any numbers. The more you do this, the more you get used to, or you get a feel for what's important, and it'll stick out at you. So just keep going with it. Like, try these methods and keep going, and you'll get better and better. Promise you. Or if you didn't, come see me. All right? Memorial 012. Okay, and what else? Repeat it or emphasize things. So obviously, when something is in bold or italicized, or if they, you know, mention, again, the important thing about this enzyme is blah, 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 whatever. So you know that it's something to highlight or underline or whatever. Speaking of highlighting, we will get to that in a second, possibly now. Yes, right now. Okay. So highlighting is something that most people have a major issue with, because it's like, oh, okay, fine, no, I'm reading, I'm paying attention because I'm using a highlighter. No, not necessarily. So there are some times when you want to highlight. If you're color coding things, you know, if you're in, I don't know, what is that stuff in like kingdom, phylum, blah, blah, blah. Say you were reading a whole paragraph about that, and you were going to highlight in pink all the things that belong to this one, or then yellow is all the ones that belong to this one. You get what I'm saying. Color coding, stuff like that. But what's really, really helpful for paying attention while you're reading is annotating. So what is annotating? It's when you go through and jot little notes next to what you're reading. Nothing crazy. You're not writing a thesis statement. You're just doing that thing where you pause, have it make sense in your brain, and then 2 or 3 words, or whatever it is, a little doodle that makes sense to you of what you're reading. So that way when you go back and look at it, you're not just going in cold again. It's like, oh yeah, that paragraph was about this little thing. It's just so much more helpful. And it really makes you interact with the textbook, which anything that you are physically doing, like while you're reading, that has to do with the textbook, not like, I don't know, if you're on the treadmill, don't be on the treadmill and reading, okay? Or if you can, yeah, fine, do that. You're very talented. But make sure you're annotating, okay? All right, and then how to remember what you read. So this is something that a lot of people have challenges with as well. So one way to do that, and we talk about this in our memory workshop, a little plug for that, is repetition. Repetition is a really great way to memorize. So one easy way to do this, because we want to keep this simple. We're not saying like, oh yeah, read that chapter and then the next day skim it again for an hour and blah, blah, blah. No. Revisit what you read for 5 minutes before class, you know? Or take a question that you had from the textbook and bring it to your professor. That is amazing, an awesome thing to do for a couple reasons. One, you're circling things while you're reading and annotating and be like, oh, okay, I have a question, I don't understand this. So that way you can just circle what you don't understand and keep it moving instead of getting stuck on that one unclear thing. Okay, so that's one reason it's great. Second reason it's great to ask your professor questions about the reading is because they love talking about this stuff, and it's their profession and they're really good at it. So why not talk to an expert about what you're reading about? They might have even written the textbook, you don't know. Well, you would know. You would definitely see the name. Okay. You got me there. So then going to the professor's office hours and asking about that is really helpful, because it shows that you are invested in what you're doing, which is great. That makes a difference. And then, of course, getting the expert answer on it. It clears it up for you. That's the main reason. And then making it your own, like we talked about. Anything you do that interacts with the textbook helps you remember it. So, for example, like I said, annotating, making little stars and happy faces next to something that you're interested in, or making a mad face at something that you hate. I do that sometimes. Depends on what you're reading. Or making flashcards. So if you, whatever works for you, whatever little tricks that make sense for you that you want, to, like anything to create something with. So the bonus of that is that you just made some study tools for yourself. So yeah, is this realistic? So if we were in a workshop, if this was live, like we would totally talk about this, and if it's not realistic, we could relate it to your life. So by all means, come to a workshop and talk about this with us, or visit us in Memorial 012, or make an appointment with the tutor. There's lots of ways to discuss this, and that's what we're here for. We want to talk to you about how to make this relevant to your life. All right, and so how do you know? We want to know when we did an amazing job, which you're about to do in the next thing you read. So you know you get it when. You like that hashtag? Yes, you do. Basically, you know that you understand what you just read when you can explain it to someone else, whether that's a friend in a study group, or the tutor that you made an appointment with, or your pet bird that is the only one around right now that you can explain it to. Whatever, just go with it. So that's one way you really know. Why is that picture of J. Cole on there? Not only because he's an amazing hip-hop artist, but because he is a really good example of a former college student who graduated and then used what he learned in real life. What do you think his major was? I'm going to give you a chance to guess. Did you say literature? Because you're right. It was literature. Now, how does that relate to being a famous, totally rich, amazing, fun life-having hip-hop artist? Because in literature, it was all about reading and writing. And so he took those kinds of skills and applied it to becoming an awesome songwriter who is now living an amazing, fancy life. So, yeah, what kind of amazing, fancy life do you want to live? Let's discuss. And reading and writing is going to help you get there, which means the academic success program is going to help you get there. No, but really, feel free to come talk to us about any of this stuff. So lastly, we're just going to do a little brief rundown here because, as you know, repetition helps you remember things. So this idea that all information is not created equal, we're not necessarily just diving into the chapter and going line by line. We want to know what's important and what to look for. So we're going to do that strategic reading, like I said, going to the back of the summaries and checking that out, keywords, all that kind of stuff. Also, we don't want to just take anything as fact. Just because it says it in the textbook, doesn't mean that you have to agree with it. Because you're a scholar now too, you're in college, so you want to start treating yourself like the scholar that you are. This is where people publish articles and come up with new ideas. You know where Google was created? Oh yeah, a university. Yep. So go for it, create the next Google, no big deal. No, but really though, you can have questions or arguments to anything that you read. So you want to think about it for real, like what your opinion your opinion is. And then also engaging with the text. Like we said, anything that you can do to make it more active will boost your grade because it's going to help you remember it. It gives you those better study tools, all those kinds of things. And then there's a great professor who says this quote, if you're reading without a pen, you're not really reading. Pen, not highlighter, a pen. Because it goes back to what? My favorite thing, annotating. Yeah, because it really helps you understand it in less time than it would take without annotating. So, yeah. So if you want to talk about this stuff, we would love to talk to you about it. You can find us in workshops, for which the schedule is online at hofstra.edu/ASP. You can schedule an appointment with one of our fabulous CRLA-trained tutors, or you can come see us in Memorial 12. We'd love to meet you, and yeah, good luck with reading. You're going to enjoy it. Bye.